Hey guys, this video is going to be over using rate and density for unit conversions. So I'm just going to work through examples on this. I'll explain a couple of things, but I'm not going to go into much detail. It's just going to be working examples. Okay, so if you're traveling 65 miles per hour, how many feet per second is this? So if we rewrite 65 miles per hour in a different way, we could write it 65 miles for every single hour that we're driving or traveling. So we want it to say instead feet per second. So we want miles to become feet and we want hours to become seconds. So we need to come up with a plan to get that done. And so what I'm going to use is 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. And that'll get me from miles to feet, and then I want to go from hours to seconds, so I'm going to use 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes, and 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. So it doesn't matter which one that you do first. First, I would convert miles to feet, but you could do hours to seconds first if you wanted. So I've got miles on the top right here, and so I need to make sure that I put miles on the bottom. And so 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So that cancels out miles, and I'm left with feet. Now I want to go from hours to seconds, so this time I've got hours on the bottom, so I need to make sure I put hours on the top so that it cancels. So 1 hour is 60 minutes, and 1 minute is 60 seconds. So minute cancels with minute, hour cancels with hour, and we're left with feet per second, and that's what I wanted to find. So my answer is going to be in feet per second. So if I put this in a calculator where I have 65 times 5,280 divided by 60 divided by 60, I end up getting 95.3 or 95 feet per second in sig figs. So if you wanted to do sig figs, you'd need 2, so it'd be 95. Okay? Alright, so this next question down here says, if you look away for 2 seconds, how far have you traveled? And so just as a reminder, we got 95.3 up here, feet per second. So it says if you look away for 2 seconds, how far have you traveled? So what we're given in this question is we're given 2 seconds, and we also have 95.3 feet per second. And so one thing that I try to remind you to do is to always use the number that does not have a unit in the denominator first. So if we look at this number right here, this number doesn't have a denominator in the unit, while over here this one does. And so what we would start with would be the 2 seconds. So I've got 2 seconds, and then I want to know how far I'll travel, and so I'm looking for feet. And so I know now that seconds has to go down here in the bottom in order to cancel out seconds in the top. So I'm going to write 95.3 feet per second, because every 1 second that passes by, we've gone 95.3 feet. So seconds cancels out, and I'm left with feet. So then I just have to put this into a calculator, and I'll get the answer. And so what I end up with is 190.6 feet. So that's how many feet you travel if you're going 65 miles per hour and you take your eyes off the road for 2 seconds. Okay, so next we're going to talk about density, and I just want to remind everybody what density is. Density is the mass of a substance divided by the volume. And so units for mass are grams, pounds, milligrams sometimes, okay? And units for volume can be centimeters cubed, it can be liters, it can be milliliters. Any of those are volume measurements. And so commonly we'll see density with the units grams per milliliter, or grams per liter, or grams per centimeter cubed. Now, these two are exactly identical because 1 milliliter is equal to 1 centimeter cubed. So anytime you see something in centimeters cubed, you can automatically change that number to milliliters. So if you have 25 centimeters cubed, that means you also have 25 milliliters because it's the same unit. All right, and so anytime you have, so this is kind of like rate, where it's distance divided by time, but this is mass divided by volume. So we can use the density in unit conversions, and I have several examples that follow. Okay, so if you have a substance that has a density of 2.26 grams per milliliter, how much mass is 25 milliliters? So when I read this, I need to figure out what I've got. So I've got 2.26 grams in every milliliter. And then I also have 25 milliliters. And I'm looking for mass. So I'm looking for grams, right? I don't know how many grams this is. I'm looking for mass. So which one of these numbers am I going to start with? I'm going to start with the one that doesn't have a number in the doesn't have a unit in the denominator. So this one has a unit in the denominator, but this one doesn't. So I'm going to start with this number. So I've got 25 milliliters. And then what do I want to do with this to make milliliters cancel and end up with grams? I'm going to put the 2.26 grams on top and then put 1 milliliter on the bottom, because there is 1 milliliter for every 2.26 grams. So milliliters ends up canceling, and I get grams. So all I have to do is take 25 times 2.26, and I end up getting 56.5. grams. All right, so let's do another one. In this problem, I have a substance with a density of 0.86 grams per milliliter, and I want to know what the volume is of 12 grams. So I'm looking for volume, and remember volume, it has the units milliliters, so I'm looking for how many milliliters 12 grams of this substance is. So I'm going to write down what I have. I've got 0.86 grams per milliliter, and I've got 12.0 grams. So which one of these am I going to start with? Am I going to start with this one, or am I going to start with this one? Well, I'm going to start with the one that doesn't have a unit in the denominator. This one has a unit in the denominator, and this one does not. So I'm going to start with 12.0 grams. And then all I need to do is figure out how I'm going to get rid of grams and end up with milliliters, because that's what I'm looking for, is milliliters. So I'm going to flip this thing over, and I'm going to put 0.86 grams on the bottom for every single milliliter, because that's what that means, 0.86 grams per milliliter. That means that I'm going to have a mass of 0.86 grams for every single milliliter. And then all I have to do is put this in my calculator, so I'm going to have 12 times 1 divided by 0.86, or just 12 divided by 0.86. And so what I end up getting with that is 13.95, or just 14.0. Okay, let's do some more. This one, if you have 10 grams of a substance and it has a volume of 14.86, what is its density in grams per milliliter? So this one's a little bit different than the last two. I'm given 10 grams and 14.86 milliliters. And normally you'd have to know a formula in order to find density. You'd have to know that density is the mass divided by the volume. But here, they give us the units they want the density in. They want it in grams per milliliter. So I know I have to take the grams and divide by the milliliters in order to get those units. And so I'm just going to take my 10 grams and divide by 14.86 milliliters. And so I just have to put that into my calculator. And I end up getting 0.673. All right, let's do a couple more. So now I'm given the density of 1.08 grams per milliliter, and I have a mass of 20 grams, and I'm looking for volume. And so I'm looking for milliliters, right? Because that's volume. And I'm given mass, and I'm also given density. So which one of these would I start with? I would start with the one that doesn't have a unit in the denominator, so I'm going to start with mass of 20 grams. And then what do I need to do with the density in order to get milliliters on top? So I want milliliters up here because that's what I want to end up with, and I want grams to go away. So I'm going to put my density down here, 1.08 grams for every single milliliter. And so grams cancels with grams, and I'm left with milliliters. So I'm going to take 20 and divide by 1.08, and I end up getting 18.5. All right, I have one more here. In this one, we're given the density and the volume, and we want to find the mass. So we're looking for grams because we're looking for mass. And I'm given milliliters, and I'm given grams per milliliter. So which one do I start with? I'm going to start with the one that doesn't have a unit in the denominator. So that would be 22.1 milliliters. And this time, I want milliliters to go away, and I want to end up with grams. So I'm going to put my density on the top this time, the 13.54 grams for every single milliliter. So milliliter ends up canceling out, which we wanted to, and we wanted to end up with grams. So now I just have to take 22.1 times 13.54. And you end up getting 299 grams. And that's all there is to it. These will get a little more challenging throughout the year, but it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. So all you have to do is keep practicing, and I promise it will eventually click. Good luck.